The strategic bit is what I want to bring over here today. Wetlands in the Mediterranean are a strategic asset. They're important for water resilience. They're important for climate resilience. They're an important underpinning for the socioeconomics, the livelihoods of people in the area, and even for health and stability. So they account for a lot of things in the region, and you'll hear a lot more about that when we get through the program. So it's much more than what some people might expect to say, that they're important for their endemic and fantastic biodiversity. They have a role in society. And when you know, as the report tells us, that Anais is going to present to us later, that we've lost over 56% of them, you know it's something of a crisis, and the trend is not improving any. Against this background, what we want to do today is really to understand a little bit more why it's important to protect and restore Mediterranean wetlands, and then reflecting back upon the policy context and the opportunities and experiences we have of restoring and conserving them, thinking a little bit more about what we can do to advance their conservation and restoration in the future. So, that's enough from me, I think. Just to quickly run through who we'll hear from today, refresh you on the agenda. After I finish, we'll have an opening speech from Cesar Luena, who will give us a bit of a scene setter on why it's so important. We'll then thereafter hear a video message from the Commissioner for the Mediterranean, Ms. Jutta. We'll then hear from the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, Flore Lavalle de Michaud, the Senior Advisor on Wetlands. We'll then go to really the knowledge of what we have on wetlands in the region, and we'll hear from Anais Guelmami, who represents Tuadevala, but also within Tuadevala, the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory. This is really the knowledge base we have on wetlands, mandated by 27 Mediterranean governments through the MedWet initiative. And then we'll hear an interesting case study from one of our member organizations, Fundación Global Nature. Eduardo Miguel regrettably couldn't join us today, so we're instead joined by Vanessa Sanchez, who is a Senior Policy Officer in Fundación Global Nature. One further amendment to the agenda, I understand, unfortunately, our representative from the European Investment Bank couldn't make it today. So that gives us a little bit more space to play with. And we hope that we can use that space to play with at the end to have a little bit of a discussion session for you to sort of put some queries back to our speakers. Maybe have a little bit of a discussion on how to advance the wetland agenda in the Mediterranean in the future. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Cesar.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. And I'm very happy of receiving you in finally your home. That's your home, the European Parliament. And thank you to Wetlands International Europe, to Tuadevala and MedWet for this important discussion. I'm very, very sorry because I have to go after my speech because I have another meeting. But some words, because wetlands are often seen as marginal areas. It's a mistake, because in reality, they are strategic infrastructure for our future. And why? You know why? Because they give us water in times of drought. They store water when there are floods. Now in Spain, in Andalusia. They reduce heat during extreme temperatures. They store carbon and help fight climate change. They support agriculture, fisheries, but also tourism, local jobs. And they are essential for biodiversity. In the Mediterranean region, this is not theoretical. It's about water security, food security, economic stability, and social resilience. Europe is the continent warming the fastest. And Mare Nostrum is one of the most exposed regions. Water stress is already a daily reality for many people. This is why the findings of the Mediterranean Wetlands Outlook are so important and worrying. More than half of Mediterranean natural wetlands have already been lost. This is the figure. In addition, when wetlands disappear, we don't only lose nature, we lose protection against floods and droughts. We lose natural water storage. We lose, finally, resilience. But there is also hope. The report shows that when governance is coherent, when ecosystems receives enough water, and when restoration is properly financed, wetlands can recover. Degradation is not inevitable. It is the result of political choices, and it can be reserved by political choices. Because finally, all in this life is policy. European policy has a key role here. First, nature restoration. This is a turning point. For the first time, we have binding restoration targets at EU level. At the moment, because you know the threats of this new monster calls omnibus. But at the moment, wetlands are covered under Article 4, which addresses the restoration of key ecosystems, and Article 11.4 on the restoration and reweighting of peatlands is especially important. Peatlands are among the most carbon-rich ecosystems on Earth. Restoring them is climate policy, biodiversity policy, and also water policy. Now, the challenge is, implementation. Member states must turn these obligations into real projects on the ground, including large-scale wetland restoration. I am speaking about the national plans that I imagine is the member states are working in the national plans. Then first, nature restoration law and the application. Second, the European Water Resilience Strategy. Water will be one of the central issues of this century. We need to move from over-extraction and degradation to resilience. Wetlands must be recognized as natural water infrastructure. Restoring rivers and floodplains and protecting wetlands is often cheaper and more effective than great infrastructure alone. Then, second point, the strategy status of the wetlands. Third, the upcoming EU climate adaptation law to be presented this year, according to the planning of the European Commission. Adaptation is not optional. Wetlands help us deal with floods, droughts, and rising sea levels. In adaptation policy doesn't put ecosystems at its core, it will not work. In our case, for the Mediterranean, the pact for the Mediterranean will also be key. Stability and prosperity in the region depend, dear friends of Jordania, on water, land, and climate resilience. Restoring wetlands must be part of this agenda, and EU-Mediterranean cooperation on water and ecosystem restoration must be strengthened. But we also have to speak about, finally, the base of everything, the money, the financing. We are facing difficult political times, Conservative majorities don't see environmental protection as a priority. Even more, I think they see as a problem. Let's check the last PP meeting in Slovenia. In Croatia, in Zagreb, in Croatia, if you have time, and read the conclusions of the meeting. But without investing nature now, we will pay much higher costs later through disasters, economic losses, and social instability. The next multi-annual financial framework must increase funding for biodiversity. That's my point. Nature restoration and climate action. The LIFE program must remain a strong standalone instrument. The European Investment Bank also has a key role because nature-based solutions must be treated as strategic investments. And member states must step up, integrate wetlands into their water and climate plans, and provide national funding. Okay, today's discussion is therefore very timely. We have the science, we have new European laws and strategies. What we need now is to turn this into action, cooperation, and investment. Before finish, you know that the work that we achieve and the results we achieved the last mandate was possible because we work together, social side, social partners, scientists, and a part, in this time, the majority of the Camera. Now we are not the majority of the Camera. But we need to increase this cooperation in order to resist. French people say la résistance. In this case, against the denialists, because they are denialists. And in this green war and resistance, the role of wetlands is a central role, is crucial, in my opinion, and also for my political group. Then we have to keep in the fight, because they are numbers for a majority of the votes. And if the European Commission send or approve a new omnibus in the future, for example, modifying habitats directive or nature restoration law, we need to have more effective cooperation, because we have a lot of problems now. We have problems in Ukraine, we have problems in Greenland, we have problems with USA, but the sustainability, the green policies are a priority, Then these meetings like this, in my opinion, are very important. But at the same time, the present or the noise, even in the net, in the social media, in the streets, because I think we decrease our efforts in the streets, in the public spaces, and this is a mistake. We have 3.5 years of mandate. Possibly our friends of Jordania, Kingdom of Jordania, I don't know if you know that in this parliament, sometimes the right and 3 groups of the far right are the majority. And that's the problem. But people voted for this. Then 3.5 years with a very difficult majority, and this is my last words in this speech, is to say thank you for inviting me. You can count with me, with my team, but also with my group. But we need to be alert in the next 3.5 years. Thank you, very good luck.
Thank you very much, Cesar, for those strong words and this leadership that you give in green issues over the years, and calling us to arms, if you like, to continue to keep our green issues on the table. I just wanted to see if I can indulge you a little bit longer. I know you have to leave, but we plan to have questions towards the end. But would you, if people have a couple of questions or points to put to you now, would you have time? Okay. Does anyone have any, listening to Cesar's words, any burning questions or issues they'd like to raise with him whilst we still have the pleasure of his company? Vanessa.
Thank you. Thanks, Cesar, for coming here and inviting us to the Parliament. I would like to ask you if you know, well, we have the natural restoration law, we have to implement it, and we know many regional governments where we work in Spain, and they all say we don't have finance to do it. And LIFE program it was something we had for natural restoration, and now it's in danger. So in the next multi-financial framework, could it be possible to at least keep some mandatory that some percentage of that country plan that there will be goes to biodiversity and nature, at least to keep that, because if life disappears and so on, I mean, something like that could be possible from a policy point of view?
I will try, but I think it will be very difficult. That's the truth. But I will try, and my work and also the work of my political group is to put in the MMF this priority, and with the specific figures, not only nature restoration, in biodiversity, LIFE program, but I cannot repeat the same argument of my last words. The problem is the problem. The problem is 3 groups join, is the second, will be the 3 groups together will be the second group in the camera, plus Weber and associated people. That's the reality. But I will try. If you want to send us proposals or specific proposals inside the documents and the several papers of the MMF, for me, it's a very good idea. Thank you, and fight.
Oh, yes, it's working. So my name is Stella Veliki. I have studied physics and informatics, and I'm a member of the European Physical Society. I'm a very passionate diving person, and I'm very interested in the sea development. I have a question from the reality. More and more of Mediterranean ports are bought by Chinese companies. They don't respect no environmental laws, European laws. I give you the example of the Piraeus port in Greece. My question is, how you supervise these Chinese companies and the respect of our environment, and how do you punish them? Because nobody punish them. Do you have some information about?
Yeah, it's thank you, Mercy. It's a very good question, but really it's not for me, it's for the European Commission. Them, I think one of my team cuts your mail or your data in order to study the possibility to present a written question to the European Commission, because I think it's a very good point.
Chinese company, they have everywhere problem with in Europe, they have in Serbia a lot of problem. They don't respect the environment, and you can do nothing against that because they have a contract, and to cut this contract is costs a lot of money, you know.
Okay.
That is a big problem.
We need information, we need news, if it's possible, evidence, in order to prepare, to organize a written question to the European Commission, because I think it's a very good question. But with China, everybody know, not only in this point, with the cars and blah, blah. But I think it's a very good point to ask in a question. Thank you.
You have to, I'm being told by different people you have to. But thank you very much, Cesar, for being with us. Okay, so we're going to move on with the program now. I'm looking to my colleagues. I believe we have a video message from the Commissioner for the Mediterranean, Ms. Jutta. But I don't know how that's going to be. Here we go.
Dear participants, it is an honor to address you today. Water security and climate resilience are amongst the key challenges for the Mediterranean region on all shores of the Mare Nostrum. As you know, the European Union has recently renewed its partnership with the countries on the southern shores of the Mediterranean. With the Pact for the Mediterranean, which we launched in November, we want to build a common Mediterranean space based on win-win cooperation to the benefit of our people, our economies, and sustainable development. We have jointly designed over 100 initiatives and projects. We want to see tangible results, and we are moving fast. Soon, I will present an action plan with the first set of actions with concrete results in the course of 2026. The action plan contains a partnership for clean transition, sustainable growth, and resilience. This partnership includes an initiative on scaling up the Blue Mediterranean Mission for restoration and resilience. This initiative will be fully aligned with the wider Restore Our Oceans and Waters by 2030 objectives for the Mediterranean. To make this happen, raising awareness on the action needed to prevent freshwater resources from disappearing is needed more than ever before. Wetlands are a particular case in point. If they disappear, it will have profound effects on the inland water security in North Africa and elsewhere, as wetlands also feed rivers and lakes. Ultimately, the loss of freshwater resources will also lead to migratory pressure. So water resilience can also become a security issue. Dear participants, let me thank you for your work on water security and climate resilience and your special dedication to wetlands in the Mediterranean through events like this one today. I'm grateful for your valuable contribution to the common Mediterranean space, and I wish you a fruitful and inspiring debate.
It's very kind of Ms. Jutta to provide us with the video despite not being able to join. And I think she made a couple of very relevant points, which we can try and pick up in the course of the session. But for now, I'd like to move on. And I'm looking to my right now, Ms. Flor Lafayette de Michaud from the Ramsar Convention, a senior policy advisor. And I believe you're going to give us something of a global view of wetlands issues and as they relate to the Mediterranean. So, Flor, over to you.
Thank you very much. Chris, can you hear? Yes, can you hear me well? Good afternoon, dear participants. I'm really delighted to be with you in the European Parliament to what I consider to celebrate wetlands. You know that on the 2nd of February, we were the World Wetland Day. And this week, we are really celebrating wetlands. And it's, I think, perhaps the first time that we are doing so in the European Parliament. So thank you so much for Wetlands International, MedWet, but also Cesar Luena, MEP, for this invitation. We really treasure this opportunity. For this presentation, perhaps I can just briefly introduce myself. I'm Dr. Flor Lafayette de Michaud, Senior Advisor for Europe at the Convention on Wetlands Secretariat. I'm also the global lead for water. And in my life, I've long worked on wetlands, whether coastal or riverine ones, in various settings and policy contexts. And I think that I would like to take the opportunity today to introduce you to the Convention on Wetlands. But perhaps let me move to first two very concrete examples that I just encountered. So if we can move to the first slide. This was last week with our Secretary General, Dr. Mumba. We were in Dakar for the high-level preparatory meeting for the UN Water Conference that was hosted by the President of Senegal. And we were invited by the government of Senegal to visit one of our Ramsar sites, or wetlands of international importance, the Lagune de Somone, not so far from Dakar, about 70 kilometers away. And what was extremely interesting in that case is that this reserve, this protected area, started by women, a group of women from villages that could see the disaster, the degradation of mangrove and the consequence of it to their livelihoods, because they were harvesting fishes and shellfishes. And they have taken this move of, by themselves, setting a restoration of mangrove with planting new plants, and they began also to create this community reserve that now is a aire marine protégée or marine protected area. And you can see on the right of the slide that there are now some fees that are collected for any visits, for any boat rides, because it's quite a touristic place. And the management committee locally is now is handling these fees, this finance, and redistributing it to the group of women, to eco guards that are, we can say, sons and daughters of these women that are now involved in guarding and collecting the tickets, but also driving the pirogue and supporting all the touristic economy of the site. And we were told that these are really green jobs being created, and green jobs that prevent these people to migrate, these local people to migrate up to Europe. And I would like now to move to the second photo. This was taken on the 2nd of February, so on the World Wetland Day in Roma, in FAO. We were there to celebrate with the Italian government that event. And this person is very interesting. He's from Italy. He's a founder of a company that has at its core the connection between economic considerations and environmental ones. It's a spin-off company from the University of Padua. And they have up to now 200 collaborators working on implementing innovative finance instruments for providing money to restoration and protection of wetlands projects, among others. What I thought really interesting is that I thought that innovative finance instruments was something in the way forward, an idea that has to be implemented. But I discovered that they have been active for already 15 years, blending private and public finances for restoration, very concrete cases over 40 countries. Next slide, please. So these are just two very recent examples of why wetlands matter, not only for biodiversity, not only for climate, for water resources, but also for people and economies. The Convention on Wetlands was signed, agreed upon countries back in 1971 on the 2nd of February in Ramsar, Iran. That's Iran. That's why you sometimes know the Convention on Wetlands as the Ramsar Convention. It's the oldest MEA, and as we like to say, it's also the most experienced. What is interesting is that at that time, they chose to take this thread of an ecosystem to, in fact, deliver on not only environmental issues, but also on people and livelihood issues. I would like to move to the next one. At that time, the founders have very much it was very clear for them that the wetlands were essential for a large array of benefits for people and the planet, like climate, water, and biodiversity resilience. Next slide, please. What is interesting to note is that under this convention, the notion of wetlands is very large. It's more than rivers, it's more than marshes or peatlands, but it's also rivers, lakes, it's also coastal ones. And we will hear about this from Anis on Mediterranean. So it's a very large array of ecosystems that are really foundational infrastructure for the hydrological cycle. And this really makes our convention a water convention and not only a biodiversity convention. Next slide, please. This convention is a bit specific because it has assets, 2,500 sites. So the Somone Lagoon that we saw earlier was one of these dots on this map. And always behind each of these dots are people and communities, and also people very much engaged with the preservation of these sites. And all these sites represent over 250 million hectares. Next slide, please. I may move here, but just to mention to you that there are two main activities of the convention. One is about scientific technical work, and I will mention it later. But one is very important, it's about communication, education, awareness, and participation. From the beginning of the convention, it was very clear that wetlands could not be protected unless people on the ground would really make it theirs. And that was a very important element of work of the countries together in the convention. Next, please. So the convention counts now 172 contracting parties, so about 90% of UN member states. But what makes us active, in fact, is really the large array of partners, such as international organization partners, and Wetlands International is one of them, with IUCN, WWF, etc. And also the regional initiatives, the Ramsar regional initiatives, and MedWet is one of them on the Mediterranean. And here I turn to Anis. And so the implementation is really supported by all these actors, but in fine, it's countries that implement the convention. Next, please. Here, I would like just to give you a few insights from the Global Wetlands Outlook 2025. So that was published for our last COP in July 2025 in Zimbabwe. And that edition of the Global Wetlands Outlook really made a case to look at what do we lose if we lose wetlands, and in monetary terms. And these are a few figures here that they generate from about 8 to 39 trillion in ecosystem services each year. All these remaining wetlands that are about 1.8 million hectares in the 1.8 square kilometers in the world. And next. I would like perhaps to inform you that there is a new scheme in the convention about wetland city accreditation to target not only the people that are close to wetlands, but also the people in cities that have also some artificial wetlands or some natural ones. And there are so far 74 now international wetland accredited cities. Many of them are in Asia. It's a scheme that has a lot of traction in Asia, but also a few ones in Europe. And if I may end with this UN World Wetlands Day on 2nd of February, this year the theme is about cultural heritage and traditional knowledge. As we saw earlier, you've seen that wetlands are often spaces that are still remaining because people have protected them for long. It's sometimes decades or even centuries of people taking care of their spaces, and particularly indigenous territories. And as we like to say, wetlands are our past, our present, and our future. So I invite all of you to work towards protecting our common future. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Flor, for that nice overview of the convention and its role in maintaining and restoring our wetlands. We can take some questions maybe towards the end, but I want to continue now. The spark for this event really came from our friends in Tour de Valle and their regular production of the Mediterranean Wetlands Outlook, a report that takes a look across the whole of the region and the status of our wetlands. But I think there are different observatories around the world. Of the ones that I know, I think the Mediterranean one is perhaps in many ways one of the most innovative, because it doesn't simply report on the state of our environment. It looks at the policy context and the wider context within wetlands sit, which gives some rather more informed and nuanced messages on how we should progress. So I'd like to give Anis the floor and talk us through the outlook and the main points we should take from it.
Thank you very much, Chris. And also before I start, I would like also to say on behalf of all the Tour de Valle team that it is an honor for us to be here today. And thank you also Wetlands International for organizing this event. And of course, thank you to the European Parliament and to Mr. Luena for the invitation. So yeah, we are talking about the Mediterranean wetlands, and we are saying that Mediterranean wetlands are disappearing, are declining, but we need to act, we need to find solutions, we need to propose answers and responses to this decline. But before starting by the recommendations and the responses, we need to know what we are talking about. So this is the role of the observatory that is run by the Tour du Vala and working under the framework of the MedWet Regional Initiative for the Ramsar Convention in the Mediterranean Basin. My name is Anis Gelmami. I am the coordinator of the Mediterranean Wetlands Observatory. And I will present you today some of the key figures and key results that we have found after the analysis and the data processing in the Mediterranean Basin based on different sources and also different collaboration with all our partners. So let's move to the next slide, please. So the Mediterranean Wetland Observatory was set in 2008, as I said, under the framework of MedWet. So our key role or key objective is to analyze the status and trends of Mediterranean wetlands at the regional scale, and also to help countries, MedWet members, to integrate this knowledge baseline into their policy and recommend and how to recommend or advocate for better management, wise use, and restoration of these ecosystems. Next, please. So we are working at the Mediterranean scale with this pan-Mediterranean or regional approach. So most of our indicators are defined and calculated at this scale, but we will see at the end of my presentation that now we have the capacity of downscaling these indicators at the national levels and to use this information to help countries in integrating the knowledge baseline into their policy. And the framework that we are following for the scientific analysis is a deep share framework, which is adopted also by the European Environmental Agency since many years now. So it's based on several indicators showing the drivers, the key drivers that are leading to the pressures affecting the wetland status and impacting their ecosystem services, the services provided by these ecosystems, and also thinking about the responses from the society, how we can improve the status of these wetlands and the services they provide. Next, please. And yeah, of course, we are integrating several frameworks. So we work with the Ramsar Secretariat and the Secretariat of Wetlands and also the STRP, the scientific and technical panel of the Ramsar Secretariat, in defining our indicators. We're also aligning our indicators with the Sustainable Development Goals indicators and objectives, and also the biodiversity framework under the Convention for the Biological Diversity. So this is about the global frameworks, but also we are integrating some regional and European frameworks, of course, based on European directives. We have several indicators that could be aligned with European directive objectives and feed the reporting obligations for the countries, but also at the regional scale, at the Mediterranean scale, we are also working a lot in aligning our indicators and knowledge baseline with the Union for the Mediterranean, but also the Barcelona Convention for the coastal and marine environments in the Mediterranean. Next, please. So let's now try to go into the key figures and numbers. So at the Mediterranean scale, please, next slide. At the Mediterranean scale, we have defined this 18 indicators that we have now we are using now to assess the status and trends of this ecosystems. Some of you have already the report in your hand, so you can also go into details and to see what are the key numbers and the key findings from this analysis. So let's start with the drivers. What are the main drivers leading to the decline and the loss of wetlands? Next one, please. Next. So the first driver that we have analyzed is the human pressure or human pressure based on the demography and the human population. Do you know that in the Mediterranean, 2/3 of the people live close to the wetlands? So wetlands are key ecosystem for the socio-economic development in the Mediterranean countries. It's not, in the past, you know that most of the civilizations in the Mediterranean were developed and grow and rise near wetlands and wetland ecosystems. So this proximity between human population and wetlands also increase the pressure on these ecosystems and the threats that are affecting these ecosystems. So we have very high density, population density living near the wetlands, 4 times higher. The density is 4 times higher than the regional average. And we have also another driver, which is the climate change, of course. So climate change was also driving the trends that we are observing in the ecosystems, in the status of these ecosystems. Of course, temperature rise and precipitation decline in the future, in the near future, but also by the end of the century, will affect these ecosystems in their functioning, so the ecological functioning, and also the ecosystem services they provide to the society. Next, please. And yeah, so these drivers are leading to different pressures. The 2 main pressures that we can identify based on our analysis are the agricultural expansion of agricultural and intensification of agricultural practices, and also the urban sprawl and the built-up areas. So these are the key pressures that are leading to the conversion of wetlands. We will see later some of these impacts. For example, we have now assessed that, or we know that 30% of the surrounding areas of Mediterranean wetlands are occupied by intensive agriculture. And we have also assessed, based on the satellite images time series, the built-up areas are increasing by 44% in areas surrounding wetlands since the last 20 to 25 years. We have also water abstraction. This is a growing pressure on the Mediterranean wetlands. Of course, without water, there is no wetlands. So we call also wetlands water-related ecosystems. This is for the Sustainable Development Goals language. So we can assess the water pressure as a pressure or threat on wetland, but we can also see it at the opposite. Wetlands are also key asset for the water cycle and the water security. So without water, there is no wetlands, but without healthy wetlands, there is no clean and enough water for the different sectors, including the agriculture, which in the Mediterranean is the key user of water. The 2/3 of the water resources in the Mediterranean, either surface water or underground water, are used for irrigation. Next one, please. And we have also the sea level rise for coastal wetlands. So this is another impact or indirect impact related to the climate change, but also to the water over abstraction. So you know that dams are playing a key role in the sediment and water supply for coastal areas and coastal wetlands. And this is also affecting the sea level rise. So we expect, based on different models, based on different models and scenarios, we can reach more than 1 meter of sea rising by the end of this century. And next one. And this will affect the coastal wetlands. So based on this models and scenarios, we can lose, or we are losing, our coastal marshes, and this loss could reach 90% by the end of the century. So by the end of the century, if we continue with the same scenarios, with the same trajectories, we can lose almost 90% or more than 90% of our coastal marshes in the Mediterranean. And some countries are even more affected than others, like Algeria, Egypt, and France, where we will lose 100% of the coastal marshes in these countries. Next one, please. So the states of the wetlands, we have lost historically. We estimate that half of the Mediterranean wetlands have been lost due to different conversions, land conversions, and threats. And only during the last 3 decades, since 1990, we estimate that the loss of natural wetlands is 12%. So this is a continuing trend. There is no stabilization or no positive trend that we have or that we are observing based on the data. And this is all this estimations and models are based on both ground data and satellite images processing. And of course, with the decline of the natural wetland habitats, we are also affecting the biodiversity that this habitat hosts. And based also on the evidences, 40% of the water-related or wetland-related species are in a warring conservation status. And this is the case for the entire Mediterranean region. And of course, all these numbers and figures that I'm presenting here are the average estimate for the Mediterranean basin, but it could be different. We can find different trends depending on the subregions and the countries. And what are the impacts of these pressures on the status of trends? Of course, due to water abstraction and water over exploitation, we are affecting the water supply for wetlands, and this is also exacerbated by the climate change and the precipitation decline. So drying of surface water areas, we have calculated based on satellite time series that 12% of permanently flooded inland marshes are lost, and 10% of temporary flooded lagoons also are lost since the last 40 years. This is an example I'm showing here in Morocco, this lake called Daitawa Lake in the mid-Atlas, Morocco. And you can see that since the last 40 years, where the lake was semi-permanently flooded lake, now is totally dried, and since 10 or 8 years, there's no water, no drop of water in this lake. And this is a combination between water over abstraction for irrigation and probably climate change effects. Land conversion also is another impact of this pressure on Mediterranean wetlands. And this is mainly driven by the agricultural development. More than half of the converted wetlands or transformed wetlands in the last 30 years have been transformed into agricultural lands. And this also affecting the ecosystem services they provide, for example, preventing and regulating flood in the different floodplains. Next one. Reverse fragmentation, as we are working under the framework of the Convention on Wetlands, the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. So we consider rivers as wetlands ecosystems, and these are also the key ecosystem allowing the supply, the water supply for wetlands. But in the Mediterranean, 95% of the major or main rivers are affected or impacted by hydraulic infrastructures and fragmentation. Yeah, and just to conclude, we can also work on the responses. So what are the responses that we can provide to improve this situation? The first one is the protection. Based on the data that we have at the Mediterranean level, we have 36% of the wetland habitats falling under protection status. So it could be a high protection status or low protection status, but this is encouraging figure. And the protection works. Next one. So the protection works. We have seen, for example, based on our data that the wintering water birds population are increasing in Mediterranean wetlands, and this is mainly due to the implementation of some frameworks like the Ramsar designation, but also the European directives like the habitat directives, for example. However, we need to encourage countries to put more effort in the protection. For example, we have now estimated that more than 160 wetlands important for water birds based on the Ramsar criteria are not designated as Ramsar sites. So we can also promote the designation, the Ramsar designation, based on this information provided to the countries. The restoration also is another key response and solution that we can promote and advocate for. We have calculated in the northern part of the Mediterranean basin from Portugal to Turkey that we can restore almost 90,000 square kilometers of lost wetland habitats with low efforts. And we have the maps, we have the prioritization, spatial prioritization tools, so we can provide all these tools to the countries to support them and help them in implementing or defining and implementing restoration projects. Next one. The management is the other answer that we are also encouraging. So the implementation of the development and implementation of management plans in the designated sites, especially for the Ramsar Convention, is key, because without management, there's no protection and wise use. And also there's another tool that can be developed more promoted in the Mediterranean is the wetland contract. So this tool is particularly effective to sustain or to have a sustainable and integrated management of wetlands. So what are the key levers that we have already identified? And now we conclude with this. The first one is how to reconcile or to better integrate wetlands into spatial planning and having this written in the documents. The second lever is making the water policy as a cross-cutting lever. So without water, there's no wetlands. So we need to work together with the water policy frameworks. And accelerating the ecological restoration. This is the third lever that we encourage countries to implement. The fourth one is how to strengthen the governance and the regional coordination, including transboundary coordination between countries. And the final one is the capacity building and enhancing the capacity of local stakeholders and local initiatives, especially civil society organizations. So just to end with this slide, so all these indicators are now developed at the national level, and we will produce in the near future results and recommendations tailored and adapted to each national context. And thank you for your attention. If you need to have the report or the last slide, the next one, please. So if you need to also to have the report online, you can also download it using this QR code, and there are some copies here for both English and French. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anis. As you can see, Anis knows his stuff, let's say. It's a very comprehensive report with a very large amount of depth to it. So I think you can take the information that's given as pretty much authoritative. So we've heard a lot about the state and the types of actions that need to happen. And so for our last presentation this afternoon, we'll move to something more practical with Vanessa Sanchez representing Fondation Global Nature, who also happen to be a member of Wetlands International European Association. So I'll give the floor to you, Vanessa, to talk a little bit about your organization's experience in wetland restoration in Spain.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris, and thanks to the Parliament and Cesar Luena's team. It's an honor for us to be here introducing our projects. We are Fundación Global Nature and we are based in Spain. Next, please. I have a lot of slides and it's going to be very fast, so thank you. So what we do, we cultivate the value of nature, and we are a Spanish foundation with 32 years restoring wetlands. And our main goal is to restore landscapes and protect biodiversity. We do it through applied research to define measures under MRV, with funding and with new tools for ESG strategies with private investors, and of course, through governance, mixing private and public partnerships to finance the restoration of wetlands. Next, please. And these are all the wetlands where we are working right now, actually around 26 wetlands around Spain, but we don't work only in wetlands. We work too in the landscapes surrounding the wetlands with agrarian landscapes. Next, please. And we are mainly trying to conserve steppes areas where there are a lot of birds steppes, very endangered, and depend too on wetlands and high nature value grasslands. And these are all the areas where we are working right now, very, very close to the wetlands that you have seen before. Next, please. And what we use is blended finance. So we have been working with LIFE programs through the last 25, 30 years. But of course, we have two basic public lines of financing, like national, regional, and local level through grants, legislation, and other accepted metrics methodologies. Next, please. And these are, for instance, we have been developing 26 LIFE projects. 10 of them have been carried out with the aim of conserving and restoring wetlands. And we are beginning now a new LIFE, very, very big for the next 10 years, that is managed by our ministry. The LIFE Humedales is the name. And there are the 11 regional authorities involved in that for restoring wetlands. And we are one partner of this big project. And when we restore all these wetlands, we don't focus only on we are restoring priority habitats of the Habitats Directive. Next slide, please. And this is an example of our LIFE projects with one umbrella species, the aquatic warbler. We began in 2002 with a very small project in one area, in one big wetland in Castilla y León, in Palencia. Then we made another LIFE project from the 17 to the 20, restoring the migratory stops of this bird in all Spain, and now we are involved in another LIFE project together with Wetland International that is covering all the migratory area of this bird from Northern Europe to Africa. So this is an example of what we can do with this public finance. Next slide, please. And what we do is reflooding different wetlands. This is one example in one inland freshwater wetland called Fuentes de Nava. It was a very big area of around 5,000 hectares, and we have recovered around 400 hectares. Next slide, please. And can you give an intro, because I have a video here? No, here, intro. Yes, this is an example of a project where we had a LIFE project, LIFE Elito. This is a very hypersaline wetland with very priority habitats, and it was covered by different infrastructures, as this facility that you have seen we destroyed thanks to LIFE investment. And we recovered a very big area. We purchased around 397 hectares of the wetland, and we convert more than 40 hectares from agricultural lands to priority habitats. Next slide, please. And these priority habitats are now recovered. We planted around 250,000 plants, Ligium spartium. There is part of this priority habitat. We eliminate livestock threats. We made agreements with around 27 farmers, and we could get an agri-environmental measure through the regional government in the CAP policy so they could get paid for the overseeding to feed the crane, this grouse bird. So birds are in favor to protect the cranes now. And of course, we made a lot of environmental education and so on. Next slide, please. And very interesting too that we could recover. We discovered this new grasshopper and two beetles new for the science. Nobody knew them because this is very saline habitat concrete that entomologists are not studying. So we could study that, and we have three new species now. Next slide, please. Yes, this is another LIFE project we are beginning now in January 2026, where we are reflooding these lagoons. We will purchase 274 hectares, the whole Natura 2000 site, and we will plan to recover 2 priority habitats, and we will include new restoration actions. So the plan is that you can see here there is a lot of irrigated agriculture in the area, and we plan to bring it back to a wetland that it was before the agriculture covered the area. Next slide, please. And we work too in the Mediterranean corridor in the coastal wetlands in Comunidad Valenciana. Next slide, please, where we have several coastal wetlands where we are working. And you can see in the column, it's very small, maybe you don't see it very well, but this is what we do with the blended finance. We have developed like around 7 LIFE projects in the last years, but this public finance allow us to bring investment from the private companies. So we could get to, for instance, Fundación Santander, a bank that helped us to restore dunes. We had to La Caixa and we made green fire breaks. We have a consortium with the municipality. We have sold carbon credits for the first time in Spain thanks to wetlands restoration. And this is why we ask here in the parliament to please keep the LIFE project, because it's not only this public finance, it allows us to bring a lot of private finance. And for instance, our foundation, we used to have 80% public finance, 20% private finance, but now we have only 40% public finance, 60% private. But we need public finance still. Next slide, please. And some actions, some example, this, I will go very fast. This is, we do restoration of infrastructures and hydrological management. Next, we do soil management in the different wetlands like soil stripping and soil mudding. Next slide. We do a lot of mowing of elophytes and composting. So we mow the reeds. It's not it's a good habitat for birds, but we need to diversify the habitat for birds. And what we do with the biomass is to chop it and use it as compost for the farmers, and even sometimes have as livestock bed for farmers. So farmers come to us to ask us about this biomass and these elophytes, and we have a lot of agreements with farmers around the wetlands. Next slide, please. This is another coastal wetland, La Raya, where we are doing this mowing of elophytes. Next. And we work with shepherds too, and we do control grazing with local farmers after the reeds opening. And these are the green fire breaks we made in some other coastal wetlands where we have recovered to some traditional rice plots among the reeds. Next. We have done too in this corridor too, and some adaptation to climate change actions. This was the restoration and protection of some dunes that are allowed to create this. The name is Mayada, is one kind of wetland in between the Albufera and the coast and the sea. And you can see here that this was very good for a big hotel, Parador El Saler. And this hotel was saved of the effects of the storm Gloria that you can see in the left, thanks to the creation of this habitat and the restoration of dunes. So this is a demonstration that wetlands restoration allow us to adapt to climate change. Next slide. We have agreements with municipality, and this is the case of Peñíscola, another coastal wetland that is located in Castellón in the north of Community Valencia, close to Catalonia. And this, what we made with them is to save and to regulate the hydrological management. And the municipalities are very happy with this because they realize that there is not only these ecosystem services that we always speak about, like biodiversity, but even tourist use, and because they have other services like they control fires and they control, thanks to this, the population of wild boar. Next, please. So we have new financing tools aimed at the business sector, and we work with a lot of business sector with water footprint, biodiversity metrics, carbon credits, and sustainable sourcing and offset measures. Next. We develop a methodology for the reduction and compensation of greenhouse gases emissions with the management and restoration of Mediterranean wetlands through another LIFE project together with the University of Valencia. And next, please. We have some results of this project, like we can save up to 38 tons of CO2 equivalent per hectare and per year in saline wetlands thanks to the mowing of reeds. Next slides. And this is all backed by academia and science. Next. We arrived with this methodology to the carbon removal certification framework of the European Commission, and we are selling now to 4 private companies the carbon credits. And this is mixed with public finance too. Next, please. And we made too this other project in the south of Madrid where we have compensated the water footprint of Meta and Microsoft. So we purchase and restore a big wetland in the south of Madrid that is now reflooded. And we expect to have finance of them too for the life of ballesteros that I spoke before. Next, we are developing two biodiversity metrics for the business sector. And there is a lot of information behind this. And this is applied next, please, with Nestlé and other companies of energy. It's applied in agrarian areas with farmers. And we are now adapting this methodology to wetlands. And so we need science, and we need to transfer this information and connect with the local population, and we are backed by the science and the academy. Next, we met some viewers. Next, and we don't forget local communities, and we engage a lot farmers and shepherds and even local population with environmental education and so on, because we need them for the restoration of wetlands. And this is all. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Thanks very much, Vanessa. That's really a sort of quick shot run through what all you're doing. But I think what you should take away, perhaps if I may, is you've got a real front-running conservation organization here trying to make sense of policy and trying to make things happen on the ground. And that requires innovation, blended finance, innovative ways of working with communities. I mean, it shows the way for how you could do things. But it's enough for me. What we have now is really a bit of a chance to put your questions to the panel. The things you've heard today, and I'm just being told we have about 15 minutes for that, so I will not talk anymore. I'll just help you post your questions. So if you push the button, show your light, and then please go ahead and pose your questions.
Yes, I told you that I was very passionate, and I am a passionate diving, and I was diving in America, in Key West, the Caribbean Sea, and you have there the Everglades. It's immense, a very wide terrain full of water. There are very strong laws there. You cannot take any animals, any plants from the water, under the water. You must pay a lot of money, in thousands of dollars, if you do it. I was diving in the Key West, in the Caribbean. They have a lot of coral system there. It's impossible to take, it's not allowed to take animals, plant under the water. It's not allowed in Key West to build something some kilometer after the beach. You need to have a special approbation. My question is, every mangrove and lagoon is a reservation space. You can see it, but from wide, from the sea part, but from wide. Can you do this reservation, natural reservation on Mediterranean beaches, or it's not possible because you have a lot of people that are living there? So is my question. I don't see any natural reservation on Mediterranean Sea. I don't see it.
Much. Would you have a particular person you'd like to fire the question at, or anyone who'd like to respond? Who would you like to answer the question? Anybody? Laura or Anis?
Maybe I can start, but I will also give the floor to my colleagues here. So the designation or the protection is a country prerogative. So it's the countries who designate and put the legal protection on nature and wetlands in particular. There are a lot of protected areas in the Mediterranean under different level of protections. And many of them are coastal wetlands, coastal lagoons, including lagoons, marshes, like, for example, where I work in the Camargue in the south of France, the Rhone River Delta. There's also several layers of protection under in this area. So I agree with you that some of this protection status do not really are not really legally binding, so they don't protect 100% of the biodiversity and the people also living there. But we are also encouraging countries to make more effort in integrating maybe not very strict protection measures, but at least integrated management measures that help the people in sustaining the socio-economic activities in parallel to the biodiversity protection. But we are not country representative here, so we cannot really commit in having more in the protected areas or wetland protected and the protected areas in the Mediterranean.
Thanks, Anis. Anybody else like to comment? This is your answer. Do we have some more? Okay.
No, I just wanted to concur with Anis. It's a country prerogative, and also for wetlands of international importance or Ramsar sites, it's a country prerogative to also define the way they regulate these spaces. According to countries, it can be very different. In Italy, for example, they are really very strictly protected areas. In other places, they preferred to have something like more of a more community-based kind of management towards a wise use of these spaces. So not to, a bit like Anis said, not to have a very strong regulation, but rather to have this element of appropriation of the preservation of a long term. So this is the balance. And maybe I wanted to call your attention, you mentioned mangroves. There is a global mangrove watch that is a map of all the mangroves in the world, and they are doing very, very good progress because these are one of the ecosystems that you can quite easily map from satellite. And I think this is a very good step towards protecting. Thanks.
I would like to make a comment about this, not exactly this, but after seeing the results of the report that Anis has introduced, we must pay attention that not all the wetlands are in protected areas, and that means that not all the wetlands are habitats of the Annex 1 of Habitats Directive. And sometimes, and many have disappeared in the last decades. And sometimes it's very difficult to find the finance if you are not into a Natura 2000 habitat. But we should find a way, because I know with peatlands it happens the same, and it's easier, but it happens the same with Mediterranean wetlands. So we must pay attention to this.
Okay, I think it's quite a comprehensive response. Do we have other questions from the floor back to our experts on the panel? Please.
Okay. Hello, Alicia Bettini from the European Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Mrs. Sanchez mentioned the carbon credits, and I'm curious to know if there is space for nature credits for wetland restoration.
Yeah, we are trying to go through nature credits too, and I think the point is that when we are developing these metrics, is very difficult. To get to the methodology of carbon, we needed like 4 years of scientific research and scientific teams that has been working on that for decades. And now we have a methodology, but and for nature credits, it will happen the same. A lot of people are developing projects. I think Eurosite is developing the biodiversity credits for wetlands in a live project. And we are trying to move to see the biodiversity net gain metrics adapted to wetlands, but the measurement of everything and the monitoring, reporting, and verification is so complicated that sometimes it's difficult for us. It's not difficult, but you need a lot of money to measure and monitor, and we need to implement actions and restore. So, and of course, when we speak with private companies, they want all the information. They want indicators, and they want that the indicators are MRV, and they want water footprint, they want carbon credits, they want biodiversity measure, and sometimes we need to say, if you want all of this, it's going to be much more expensive to measure than to implement the restoration action. So we need to arrive to something very more with some common sense to have good results and good indicators and good measurements behind, but not making things so difficult that then it's not possible to implement. But yes, we are working on that address too, and we would like to be more involved in the nature credit roadmap. I know the Commission has an expert group on that, and we are in there too.
Okay, thanks, Alice and Vanessa. Do we have more questions from the floor? Just to give other people a chance for a moment. No? Shall I allow, you've had one turn already. That's okay, please.
So actually, I'm interested in, you've mentioned this nature credits roadmap that the Commission recently released, and they are currently developing what nature credits would look like for the European Union. What would you like to see in the strategy for nature credits?
Oh, well, it's it depends on the ecosystem where you are working. If you work in agroecosystems, I think there is a misunderstanding in the development of nature credits, because the main problem could be like when you do the baseline, you measure biodiversity, and then you make some actions to change whatever, restore or change farming practices, and then you measure again. But if the year 0 is dry and the year 3 is wet, then it will be okay. But if the year 0 is wet and the year 3 is dry, then you are losing biodiversity because you depend on the weather. So that's something that we are finding in the agrarian landscapes, that we need to move on that. And then regarding wetlands, we need something, biodiversity in natural ecosystems is not something you can measure during 1 year, but we cannot expect 10 years to see results. So I think there's a challenge there, and we need to move forward to the way to make it useful, but not finding something so that you have to wait so many years until you have results measured. That's something we need to ask the Commission to have an eye on that too.
Okay, we take.
Yeah, I wanted to know if I was in another seminar here, and they have no information about the relief of the platform of the Mediterranean Sea, deep in the water, and they have no information about the ocean deep relief. I don't know if this is play an important role for your problem with the wetland, but I think that if you have a lot of information, that it's not bad to know about it. It is now a new physical method. It's a quantum navigation that can help you to have all this. It's a beginning. It's not a very procedure that you can use it everywhere, but it's at the beginning. It's a good test results, and then can help you to see the relief of the deep sea and ocean.
Okay, then we talk a lot about the connection of wetlands and land. We've asked about the question, the connection between Mediterranean wetlands and the sea.
Maybe I can bring the information that under the Ramsar Convention, there is a consideration of marine sites until 6 meter depth. So this is because it has been identified so quite some time ago that even waterfalls, for example, are using coral reefs or species that are a bit further, and because of the continuity. But we are not, considering much further. But what was interesting is that at the Ocean Conference, there was a very strong move to put for the source to sea approach and to really consider the continuum. Because I think everybody knows here, but wetlands are extremely dynamic, and they are extremely also, the continuum from, for example, freshwater to brackish wetlands is very difficult to really put a line somewhere. And we have, and I agree with you that monitoring and also baseline elements, etc., on wetlands really need to be able to encounter that dynamic elements. And it's also a challenge, a scientific technical challenge, but it's also important for policymakers to understand that it will not be so easy to put a line somewhere on the map, or for regulation also how to design policies that can adjust to this dynamism. Thank you.
Okay, we're running close to the end of time, so I'm going to try and wrap up. But I'll warn the panelists I'm going to wrap up, and then I'm going to put them on the spot to come with one key action they'd like to see prioritized in the spirit of trying to safeguard, restore our Mediterranean wetlands. But I mean, just to wrap up, you've heard a lot today. You've heard about the policy context we have and how threatened that is at the European level. We have good directives, the Habitats, the Birds Directive, the Water Framework Directive, under pressure, but nevertheless still there. We have initiatives such as the Nature Restoration Regulation. We have an opportunity in the terms of the Pact for the Mediterranean. So we have places to go to influence policy or to implement policy. We've got a great knowledge base, which was shared by Anis. We know what's happening in this region, perhaps more than almost any other region in the world. Detailed understanding of what the drivers are, what's happening, and we even have ideas, opportunities where we can see we have low-level, low-hanging fruits for restoration. So we know what we have and where we can go. We have also front-running organizations who are innovative, are doing work on the ground and making it happen. They know how to, but still we're faced with this trend, 56% lost and ongoing, 12% in the last 30 years. So if you had to pick one thing going ahead, Anis, Laura and Vanessa, what would the priority action be? Looking at where should we go to try and mobilize this agenda and really achieve a greater scale of protection and restoration? Sorry, it's a horrible question.
Perhaps I would really recommend to build on what is the existing knowledge in terms of prioritization. We heard already that there is a lot available to prioritize. We have also these Ramsar sites. That could be also a place to start with, and perhaps not to take too much time in the future in designing what should be prioritized, but accept to start with low-hanging fruits, as you say, and then progress on knowledge and improve over time. Thanks.
Maybe I can add one word following also what Mr. Luena was telling us at the end of the opening remarks, is that regulation and protection works, and we should also keep going and progressing in implementing and developing and implementing these measures and not destroying what is already adopted by the countries and also at the European level.
Well, from my point of view, I think we need action and we need to restore already a lot of hectares of wetlands. And for that, we need this blended finance. So we need to keep at least LIFE program or something similar to that, because the figures show that we need much more money than LIFE. So we need that. And of course, we need to keep working on this other private investment in the restoration of the wetlands. And always make it by the science. We need the science behind to be sure that what we are doing is good. And yes, we should try not to politicize nature. I mean, at least in Spain, now the many, I don't know, in the territory, in the land, there is a lot of people thinking that we don't need nature, or that entities like us are horrible. I mean, I don't know why they are very against us. There is a big policy war against NGOs back in Spain. And we need not to politicize. I mean, nature is for everybody. We need nature for everybody, and we need to have it there, and we need to restore it. So, and we have a lot of private companies together with us. Maybe we can use them as a back for asking politicians to support the nature restoration law and the nature restoration objectives, because they believe in this. I mean, a lot of private companies are investing and going through biodiversity conservation, so we can use them too, I think, to demonstrate that it's for everybody.
Okay, one.
Maybe it's just, I would like just to add a point and further to your comment. I think to me, a concrete move could be also to have a trans-party move in the European Parliament supporting wetlands. We know that this exists in the UK Parliament, and it's deliberately a trans-party approach. Thanks.
Okay, I think there's some inspiring ideas there from our panelists. So I think now it really falls to me to once again thank Cesar, Luena and his team for hosting us here today. For you, for your careful listening and engagement with the presentations and the information. And to wish you a belated happy World Wetlands Day, because this was also part of the reason for holding this now. So thank you very much, everybody. And I think with that, we can close.
Thank you.